Hello and welcome to Triage, timely conversations for healthcare professionals, a podcast created and produced by K&L Gates. Each episode is designed to highlight important developments in health law and analyze the impact on our clients and friends of the firm. We hope you enjoy this podcast.
Hello and welcome to Triage. I'm Rebecca Schaefer, a healthcare partner in the RTP office of K&L Gates, and I'm joined today by my colleague J.D. Koesters in our RTP office and Data Privacy and Security Group. Welcome, J.D.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So we're here today to talk about a recent publication by NIST relevant to HIPAA-covered entities and business associates in a space that's on everyone's minds these days, cybersecurity, and what covered entities and business associates can do to bolster their compliance with the HIPAA Security Rule. So with that prelude, JD, what exactly happened in terms of a recent NIST publication?
So last month on July 21st, 2022, NIST, or the National Institute for Standards and Technology, published the initial public draft of the second revision for the Special Publication 800-66, which is their guidance on implementing the HIPAA Security Rule. It provides an overview of kind of the current state of the HIPAA Security Rule, and it also gives entities practical guidance for implementing measures to comply with the Security Rule. It would supersede Revision 1, which was published all the way back in October of 2008, so it's been a while. And they're seeking public comment right now from organizations through September 21st of 2022.
Great, got it, thank you. So why is NIST revising the publication?
Well, it's been a while since they published their last revision, 2008, and a lot's changed. First, this is just part of their mission. Under the NIST Act, NIST is to provide kind of an ongoing facilitation and support for the development of standards and to reduce cyber risks in critical infrastructure. And here, public health in particular is part of that critical infrastructure. And then, like I said, a lot's changed since 2008, both from a regulatory standpoint and a technical standpoint. On the regulatory side, we had the implementation of HITECH and GINA and then the Omnibus Rule. Those extended the privacy and safeguard security rules to business associates and their subcontractors. It also put in new requirements for breaches that also come with stiffer penalties. And then NIST, since then, NIST has published a lot of guidance on this, on cybersecurity and risk management, which they then incorporate now into the healthcare sector to kind of give you that practical guidance, keeping up with the most recent industry standards as they see them. And then from a technical standpoint, organizations' risk portfolios are changing dramatically, and they've changed just in the past couple of years. If we look back at 2008 to now, I'm sure many organizations are now including a cloud computing component. Since 2020, we're now looking at a lot of teleworkforce that continue to grow in size and appear to be here for the long haul. And then we also have different threat actors that are growing in number and sophistication, and the types of attacks have changed. Specifically, ransomware has grown dramatically since this time. In 2008, most of these threat actors were just looking at credit card payment data. Now they're trying to get credentials. They're trying to get the sensitive information, everything they can to lock up your systems and hold something ransom that's going to bring you liability. So a lot's just changed.
Yeah, pretty scary. So with that, then what are some of the changes you would highlight or key new components to the recent NIST publication?
You can see in particular, NIST has followed kind of OCR's guidance on this, that risk assessments and a risk management program up front is key to anything when it comes to compliance with the security rule for HIPAA. If you can't really know how to comply with the security rule for your organization, if you don't know what you need to protect and where the most significant threats and vulnerabilities exist across all of your networks from the enterprise level down, a documented risk assessment is required under HIPAA, and this goes well beyond just a checklist. This is a thoughtful document that you have looked at and you've assessed, and as your organization changes, you are making changes to it as well. And then the second thing they've done outside of the emphasis of the actual having a plan in place in case something happens is once you create that plan, they've created a crosswalk to a lot of their other published guidance that I spoke about earlier. So if there is a specific standard to be met, and that those standards might be addressed in another publication that was addressed at cybersecurity in general or another industry, and they think it might be well suited in this, they do a good crosswalk for practitioners to reference.
Got it. So crosswalking cybersecurity guidance or practices from other industries to the HIPAA security rule standards.
Exactly.
Yeah, that does sound very helpful. So maybe at the risk of inviting you to state the obvious, but why is this important?
Yeah, well, obviously, as you said in the introduction, cybersecurity is on the front of everyone's mind. We see every sector adjusting to the continued threats and preparing for more regulatory guidance on information security and data breaches on almost a weekly basis. For the health sector, the regulations have always been there, and HIPAA has almost been a standard setter in a lot of ways. But this year, we've seen OCR really put an emphasis on cybersecurity. In February, the director of OCR penned a letter calling on all covered entities and business associates to improve their posture in 2022. And this was before Russia invaded Ukraine and tensions with China arose, and with activity in Taiwan, two of our larger threats in this space. But it's also important, not just because people are echoing it, but because this is what OCR is going to be looking at if you are ever sent one of the investigation letters. In 2021, high tech was amended to require HHS to consider, and I'm putting it in air quotes, recognized security practices to see if an organization has had those recognized security practices in place 12 months prior and beyond when determining fines, audit results, or other remedies for security rule violations. The recognized security practices that are called out in the amendment, there's actually two by name, and one was approaches that are promulgated under the Cybersecurity Act of 2015, and then those that are created under the NIST Act, along with any other regulatory authorities. But here you have something promulgated under the NIST Act, but it is aimed at healthcare entities and covered entities. So really, it's encouraging good cyber posture and prevent organizations from doing a quick rollout when an incident happens. Sometimes these risk management programs can be created and then filed somewhere and forgotten, and what they don't want that to happen. So they're going to be looking at how have you managed your risk? How have you managed this program? Have you exercised your assets, and have you been doing it for longer than the problem existed? Were you being thoughtful before it actually occurred?
So that's all very, very good to know. But does that mean if a covered entity or business associate follows this NIST guidance or NIST publication, they'll be deemed in compliance in the event of a data breach or an OCR investigation?
No, the amendment did not go that far to say that this is like a safe harbor. Following this guidance is safe harbor a provision. Instead, it's more of a compass or a recognized practice that would be seen as a mitigation if there were any other potential violations of a security rule. Again, it's just letting OCR know that your organization is being thoughtful about cybersecurity practices and taking intentional steps to comply. And really, this guidance, because NIST does this crosswalk and they're looking at other industry standards and some of the guidance they provided, this guidance isn't just important for OCR. Liability is increasing across the board, across all industries. FTC's enforcement in cybersecurity and data is growing exponentially under Commissioner Khan. States are following California's lead, including Connecticut and Utah passing laws this year on data privacy. And we see attorneys general beefing up enforcement and reporting requirements. Liability is growing, and if you can show someone that you are being intentional about how you're taking these steps and you're trying your best to follow the guide that is presented by our federal government, it will go a long way in answering any of these regulators.
So that's really helpful clarification. Thank you. So what should providers, covered entities, business associates be doing now with this guidance?
Yeah, so the first thing I would do is internally, I would just start asking the questions. What are we doing to comply with HIPAA Security Rule? When was the last time we conducted a full risk assessment of our organization? And since that time, have things changed? Did your workforce go more remote? Have you added new digital mediums, cloud computing, online meeting platforms? If you're doing telemedicine, those kind of things will let you know whether it's time to conduct another risk analysis. Organizations are always changing, and so therefore the risks are always changing. And say you've done the risk analysis. Have you exercised your program? That's a big key here. What have you done recently? Have you recently tested your staff through a false phishing campaign? Do you have plans if your organization can continue operations if you were to go offline, whether by your own intentional going offline or due to a ransomware? The government's trying through NIST to make compliance easier for everyone, but cybersecurity is hard. There are factors that are making it hard. Unrest throughout the world, and particularly with the two largest threats, Russia and China, will continue to increase in this space. And we see digital mediums growing in this space. And patients are going to want telemedicine access. That's one thing we're finding. And digital health monitors in all forms are becoming more common. And that data is being ingested for care more often. But all of these come with risks. And ultimately what this is almost an attempt to create a standard of care in the cybersecurity world while adjusting to the risks that are continuing to evolve.
Thank you so much, JD. That's really helpful. Really appreciate your time today and your insights, and also, your perspective on what to highlight and what folks can do now in light of this recent NIST publication. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me.
And thanks as well to our audience for tuning into this latest episode of Triage.
Thanks again for listening to Triage, timely conversations for healthcare professionals. New episodes are available for download through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. By subscribing to Triage, you will receive timely notifications for each new episode. Also, if you have any topics you would like to hear discussed on Triage, please don't hesitate to email triagesupport@klgates.com. We would love to hear from you.